You are listening to the USDN on the DSPN.
It's a trap!
What is up, everybody, and welcome to the United States Department of Nerds, where we are for the people, by the people, and of the people. And tonight, the lights are flickering, the subway tracks are trembling, and somewhere in the storm-soaked streets of the city, a single donor heart may decide the fate of everything. Join us inside the Council of Nerds tonight is Steve, who is an educator, a writer, editorial director of Comix Asylum, and co-creator of the new action-suspense thriller Atrium, which is the first official creator-owned comic from Comix Asylum. Steve, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. That's awesome. And you know what? I could have kept, jamming to your intro music. That's peak. Unbelievable. Love it.
Shout out to Black over at the Smoke Pit for creating that for me. And the voice of Vader in that is done by our friend Frank D of the No Gimmicks podcast.
Nice.
And we have a special podcast with him and another one of our council members launching in January that everybody's going to want to stay tuned for. I'm not going to give that away yet because that one is a big surprise. So Steve, for everybody meeting Atrium for the first time, throw us the elevator pitch.
All right. So Atrium is about two paramedics who are tasked with delivering a donor heart to a mysterious patient. But en route, they and their security detail are intercepted by a group of deadly assassins who happen to be vampires.
That's the curve right there. That's the one that got me about, I think it happens about halfway through on the subway is when just before the subway, I think we kind of get the first hint that they're vampires. And I was just like, I was not expecting it. So when the vampire first did his little red eyes and the fangs come out, I was like, well, damn, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting just assassins. But instead we got, Nosferatu meets the transporter a little bit there.
Yeah, a little bit. The crew here at Comix Asylum Publishing, we totally love those kind of movies.
Oh, yeah.
1, 2, 3. We grew up in the 80s, so stuff like, Predator and Die Hard, Lethal Weapons, and then obviously vampires and monsters are a big part of our, early tutelage in nerddom. So we love that stuff along with comic books, and we decided why not make something that would kind of combine some of the best elements of the things that we grew up either reading or watching.
It definitely hits all our favorite elements from the 80s and 90s of, action. We had some, there's a couple of moments that feel almost like Blade a little bit in there. And I was like, it was like, for those out there, if you need something to read this holiday break, grab Atrium. It won't let you down, because it was full of action from start to finish. There's not a dull moment in it. And it's just a phenomenal, phenomenal book. And Comix Asylum come out swinging out the gate on their very first creator-owned comic.
Thanks for the kind words. Really appreciate that. This has been a long time, kind of like getting Atrium to where it is now. We just finished the Kickstarter for the graphic novel. And that combines the first 5 issues, which are what we had as our first, 3 Kickstarters. and we were trying to figure out, like, do we do it as a graphic novel, and then do we do it as like single issues? And it was one of those things where the single issues work well because of like the
Yeah.
serialized, like if you think like those old radio shows or even like the cartoons we grew up watching,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
tune in next week because, and our goal was to end every issue on a cliffhanger. And
Dude,
I
that's
think
some of my favorite comic
Yeah.
books right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I remember as a kid, I don't know, Spider-Man would be falling off a building or something like that, or Hulk's one of Hulk's villains would show up, or Iron Man would do something and be in peril, and it's like I got to wait 3 weeks for the next one.
Hey, here we are in our 40s, and I still like thank God this one's every 2 weeks, because now
Right.
I'm like, I'll be the first in line, and as soon as I'm out the comic book shop and I'm sitting back at work, I'm like,
Exactly.
I got time to squeeze this one in. I gotta get to it. So let's jump and talk about a little bit about Comix Asylum. Y'all been
Sure.
covering the industry since 2014. What made y'all want to leap into publishing comics?
It was one of those things where, you know, my partner Vaughn and I, we started Comix Asylum, and it was like a digital interactive magazine that you would want, like you could read it on the iPad. And so we would embed movie trailers, and we would do articles on upcoming movies, as well as, it was kind of like Wizard Magazine 2.0.
Oh yeah.
More of a digitized version of that. And then we always wanted to make our own books. And I had worked in a comic book studio here in Toronto. And before I actually got to do my own book, the studio kind of, you know, disbanded. But that desire had been there from since I was a kid. So I remember as a kid, when I was like, you know, maybe grade 2, 3, 4,
Mhm.
I'd always either be doodling in class, and then when I got, you know, proficient enough, I would make my own comics after school. Wouldn't do any homework, piss off my parents. And so I would just make my own books. And my buddy Vaughn, Vaughn Joseph, who's the editorial director along with myself, and he also does all the great design work that you see
Mhm.
all over Atrium, as well as our websites. We were like, let's see if we can make our own. And so we had this idea percolating, and we decided we'll go with this one because the story was complete, and we felt that it was kind of one of those things where we love superheroes, but this story we just had to tell.
No, y'all know that. And I want to take a second real quick. Shout out to Toronto, who is a sleeper city for talented comic writers and artists. I think you're my third person from Toronto this year, as far from an indie creator standpoint, and there's not been a single bad one from Powerscape, The Plague. I think they're all based in Toronto. And Greg, I don't know if you're familiar with Greg, the most handsome man in the world, who's so handsome, you take one look at him, your head will explode. Shout out to Nerd in the Sky. I love that guy. He is so fun. But y'all are
right.
killing it, man. Y'all are phenomenal up there. I don't know if it's something in the water or what y'all got going on, but y'all are producing some amazing comics up there.
Yeah, from indie to mainstream, there's a lot of talent in Toronto, Southern Ontario, especially, because like if you cast a wide net, you can have people like Dave Finch, who's like a long time stalwart in the industry. We've got Jason Liu, who's doing stuff for Marvel. Francis Manipal, who's doing stuff for
Ghost Machine.
And I really like his current book right now. That book's a lot of fun to read. It's one
The
of my faves.
Rockefellers.
Yeah, Rockefellers is one of my faves.
Same.
Jason Fabok is in the region as well too. So
Rook Exodus.
Absolutely, and that's another banger book.
Dude, I shout Ghost Machine from the top of my lungs every chance I get the opportunity. And the smartest thing Image ever did was nail those guys down with and allow them to have Ghost Machine under their print for Image.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure if I'm mistaken, but I think Redcoat just got a movie deal.
Just got a movie deal. It is announced last week, which Simon Pure, God bless that handsome, rugged idiot of a Redcoat. That's going to be a fun movie because there's so much they can do with him, and he is the luckiest idiot to grace a comic book.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and so like it's almost like that having that much talent in one area, it almost feeds the energy for other creators that are like maybe on the outside thinking that can I do it? Can I not do it? But also when you go to the shows like Fan Expo or Toronto Comic Con or Niagara
Yeah.
Falls or even like traveling up the 401 to Montreal and you go to their cons as well too, you're able to run into a wide range of creators, both indie
Hmm.
as well as pros.
Yeah, it's amazing. And this has been a year of discovery and growth from me on a personal perspective when it comes to comic books and stuff like that, because I've learned about a whole lot of Italian comic book
Mhm.
writers and artists this year, Canadians, um, South Americans. My good friend Francisco Nilo down in Argentina, who's always doing his part. That's a reference to what's the movie with the space buds?
Mars Attack. No, that's not Mars Attacks.
No, not Mars Attacks.
Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers. So that's the running joke down there. Anytime they see their friends, it's like, "Hey, we're doing our part," and it's always funny to me. And it's always funny to him. That's how we greet each other whenever I
Yeah.
have him on the podcast now. So it's been a great year of discovery and growth for me from a comic book perspective. And I think having the podcast really helps me want to dig in a little deeper and a little bit more. So that's been really amazing. So, did the Comix Asylum audience help shape this project in any kind of way, or was this just a love child of y'all?
This actually predates Comix Asylum. This
Oh,
idea
okay. Nice.
was kicking around probably like 15 years ago, where our letterer, Greg Parkin, shout out to him and the great work he did on the title. He was in contact with some people and they were thinking of maybe doing a short film. And so we decided, well, maybe we can take this idea that we have and, because it's got very few locations, we can do it for a small budget. And that's where it kind of started. And then basically it was like being outside of the industry, how do we get this thing made? And it was kind
Mhm.
of like before things like KDP and self-publishing. This was back in the days where like ash cans were the big kind of indie way
Oh,
to get
yeah.
your books out.
Yeah.
Before you can go to big printers that we have nowadays and get full color runs of your stuff. And from there, we reworked the story a few times, had some stops and starts looking for artists. And then we were lucky enough, believe it or not, to find Lucas Filappi, who is the superstar artist on our book. We're so fortunate to have him.
Yeah, I love
Found
the
him.
art on this.
Yeah, he totally killed it. And we found him on Twitter because someone else had a shout out looking for an artist, and he had his
Mhm.
stuff in the thread. I was in the middle of trying to figure out what we were going to do next because we had just lost our artist, and saw him. Asked the guys, they said, "Yep." Then contacted Lucas, and as they say, the rest is history. So much so that in a few days I'm going to be heading to Brazil, to Sao Paulo, where Lucas lives, and
Oh,
we're
nice.
gonna be doing an in-store signing down there. And Lucas
Dude, that's
also,
amazing.
yeah, it's been a crazy ride,
Would
but
you be
also
okay with them showing them some of the art?
absolutely. And
Yeah, let
Lucas
me bring it up.
actually is translating it. He translated it into Portuguese, so it's going to be a lot of
Yeah,
fun.
that's what you were telling me. That's really, really awesome. Canceled. This is always gets me. I want to do a share screen, and then window. Let me bring it. You know what? I have to bring it up first. I gotta be smarter than it. It didn't scroll up. Now I can do it. Here we go. Share. Now I can add it. There we go. That wasn't difficult. So this was a really, really awesome cover. And
Yeah,
it does a really good job of selling what the story is about.
it was interesting because, and thank you for that. That's all Lucas. I think it was Gail Simone was on Twitter, either Twitter or Instagram or
Mhm.
something, and she just had like a random, show me what you're working on. And so we shared the cover, and she's like, "I'd buy that." And that's
Oh,
when we kind of
nice.
knew. That's when we kind of knew
She's
that.
another one that's criminally underrated, and I hate that.
Agreed. And she's hilarious on social media and likes to
Mhm.
kind of needle us, anyone who's like reading her tweets and stuff, but she's on point. I enjoyed her X-Men run, the one that she's
Yes.
currently on. It's been fun. And the
Yep.
artist whose name slips my mind is phenomenal on that run.
I mean, look at this art. I love this style of art. It's just so good. Like the focus is on the actual characters and not necessarily the background until you get to something like this, and then they go all out on the background.
Yeah. Lucas was fantastic on this. He did an amazing job. And one of the reasons why we liked his work is because of how gritty it is.
Yes.
Like I say this all the time, and if anyone's seen me online talking about Atrium or comics in general, the art is just like, being a casting director. And so if you're telling a certain type of story, you want a certain type of work, just like you would want a certain type of actor or even a cinematographer for whatever your movie is going to be. And Lucas kind of was able to capture like the grittiness and the dark shadows of the not only the city and the situation, but also the subway tunnels. And I just loved how he had a personal touch to every single character.
Mm-hmm.
They had their own individual look.
Yeah, that was really amazing to see, because it's not like a lot of the times with a comic like this, they can just, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say call it in. They'll just call it in,
Right.
where everybody kind of looks the same, but each individual face, each individual character had their own personality. And it's always amazing to see that in an indie comic. And that's one of those things, even in Marvel and DC, sometimes you can tell when the artist is kind of tired of doing it and they're calling it in at that point. You can tell where they've reused panels and reused art from other, previous, issues. We notice that, people.
Right.
We notice that. Artists, writers out there, we notice when you call it in.
Yeah, you can kind of tell. And also too, to be fair, deadlines can be kind of crazy in this industry.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of one of those things like, what's my shorthand? And can you use the shorthand to help you reach your deadline? But the beauty,
You there, Steve?
right? The beauty of indie is
Okay, you're back now. We lost you
don't
for
have
about
those-
a half a second there.
Okay, great. Good to know that I'm back. As I was saying, the beauty of indie is that you don't have to worry about deadlines, right?
Yep.
It's one of those things where it's like, if you need 4 weeks to do the artwork, you have 4 weeks to do the artwork.
Yep.
And it was also great going back and forth with Lucas, because he would draw something that we wouldn't necessarily have written or wouldn't have seen it the way that he represented it. And we're like, yo, he nailed it better than we wrote it. So it's all good.
Yeah. So when you storyboarded this thing, like, did you tell him like how to face the people and like emotions? Did you give him all that in advance, or did you just give him the story and be like, hey, here you go?
Yeah, no, gave him the script, told him to, just kind of represent it the best way that he thought. If I wrote, like my writing partner, Peter Van Horn, and I, if we'd given him a 5-panel page and he thought it would be better with a 4-panel layout or a 6-panel layout, to just go ahead and do that.
That's awesome. I know there's some artists out there. I know I think a week and a half ago, I had Sabe on, who's Italian. He does Shock-Headed Peter, which is another phenomenal book by Ethan and Jess. And I know he likes very detailed notes in the story, like, hey, let's try this angle. And like, he's big about getting the emotions of the characters. Like, what do you want them to display? Like, is it at a nighttime scene or a daytime scene? He likes to get that in the notes of the story. And but that's him. But he's very good at what he does, obviously. I mean, I don't know if you've had a chance to check out Shock-Headed Peter, but it's some phenomenal artwork in there. And there's a lot of Italian influence, small city Italy like influences in it. Very beautiful book. But what has been your most surprising part of this transition into doing this comic book now that you've done it, from versus what you were doing just on a daily basis for Comix Asylum?
I think the biggest part of it is just realizing how much of a machine making a comic book is, and how much, like, I knew how much work has gone into it, because like I think we were talking about it before we came on air, that I was part of a comic book studio with Ken Lashley, right? I didn't mention this part, but it was with Ken Lashley here in Toronto. And so we were working on like Rising Stars and Ghost and a couple of Marvel books and DC books along the way, as well as doing toy design. And so like you knew how pressure packed it could be.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until we were doing this, and then you're finding out like, okay, almost creating it's the easiest part. Like writing it, easy. Drawing, difficult, way more heavy lifting than the writing. But again, easy. It's then putting it together, doing the crowdfunding, doing the fulfillment, doing the social media, coming on amazing podcasts such as this, running our own podcast. It's that.
You're a busy man, because I was going to say, like, you have your own podcast as well that you're doing in between all of this.
Yeah. And part of it's, promotion. And part of it is
that's where a lot of Kickstarters and stuff like that fell, is I don't want to say they don't have the funds to promote. It's that they just don't promote. Yeah. Promotions are free. Coming on a podcast like this is free. I mean, and it's one of those where, like when I'm advertising for interviews on Facebook and Instagram and Blue Sky, where you contacted me, I make it easy. I tell you, like, hey, all you have to do is send me an email or shoot me a message, and we'll make something work, because I believe every independent comic deserves its chance in the spotlight and have its voice heard. But
you're doing great work. You're doing great work. No lie.
I appreciate it. And ever since I made this transition over to doing this, it's been completely 100% amazing. I've had some of the best people in the world on, and I've gotten to read a lot of great comics that I may not have had the opportunity to read, or would have never read, because they would have never seen the light of day. And every time I see a successful Kickstarter from somebody who was on the podcast, I'm like, little wins, I stack them up.
Yeah, you know what? We're all part of the same community. Even though we're separated by borders and oceans and whatnot, we're all, we all love the medium. And so any little bit that can help totally goes a long way. And like, I even think about when we were starting and reaching out to Cole Kerschel, who does Death Transit Tanager up in Montreal. I called him and reached out to him, and I was like, hey, what is it about shipping that you can help us with? Right. And he gave us some options, some of his trials.
Yeah, right now shipping is like horrible out of Canada.
Yeah, shipping,
not cheap.
It's not cheap, right? And then like with just the current economic climate, getting it printed and then getting it shipped, if you're not in the same country, also has its challenges. Yep. And so it's all these little things, like, when I'm doing interviews for Comix Asylum and I'm at a con and you're talking to an indie creator, or even a professional creator who's working for Marvel or DC or Boom or something like that, the questions that you ask give you insight into then how you can help yourself or even other creators, kind of get over some of the hurdles that you would experience that you wouldn't even think about, right, when you're creating your own comic.
Now, we as in the network, and we went to Cape Con in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Shout out to Cape Con and that team over there. They put together a phenomenal con twice a year. They have Cape Con, and then they have an anime con as well. And we were there for Cape Con. We got to go in, set up, do our podcast live from there. Great experience, great learning experience. It was my first time doing a panel at a con.
Nice.
And I can't wait to do many, many more, because those are such a good time.
Not only that, it puts you on the ground with your audience. And so like you get direct feedback on not only like how enthusiastic people are about a given comic or a given con, but sometimes even what you're doing. So like when we would table at a show for Atrium, the feedback you get either from the elevator pitch or the very fact that someone is willing to give you their hard-earned money and they don't know anything about you is the greatest validation you can ask for as a creator, right? We don't have the machine of like DC or Disney with Marvel behind you to kind of like, get your word out there.
Mhm.
And so having that kind of a response is great. And even better is when you go to do a show the next year and they're like, hey, do you got issue 2? That's even better.
Yeah. There's a few local people here that I'm waiting for their next issue of their comic books to come out. But every time I see them, they're in the same hurdle. I'm
Right.
like, dude, come on the podcast. Let's get you a Kickstarter going. Let's get issue 2 made, man.
Mhm.
And here I can only lead that horse to water so many times. Like I've even told them, like, hey, I've never done a Kickstarter personally yet, but I'm more than willing to sit down and together and we can figure this out. So
Yeah, no, that's a great offer. And there are people that you could reach out to. Like when we were trying to figure out some of
Yeah.
the ins and outs, we had outreach. And for the most part, the thing about comics is there's not too much gatekeeping. And so
it's really not. And that's
No.
what's great about it. And I have a good friend who actually was the very first creator that came on the USDN, in Bruno Catarino. He's Portuguese, lives in the UK. He was a very first person who reached out to me when I first decided I want to interview indie creators. He was the very first one. And he's been on the podcast multiple times now.
Bruno's great.
And
Bruno's
he
great.
really is.
We've had him on the pod as well too, on the stream, and he's
Mhm.
great.
He really is, and super smart
Mhm.
and very, very humble about what he does. And he has created a kind of like a Kickstarter lessons learned, or just a lessons learned in general about Kickstarters and indie comics and that kind of stuff. He's got 2 volumes now of that. And I'm like, anytime I have a new creator on who's never done it before, I'm like, hey, I have some good resources. I'm going to send those to you, because Bruno's just like, he sent it to me. He's like, hey, anybody who comes to you with any type of questions that you don't have answers to, maybe this will help them. And he gave it to me to pass to other creators and stuff like that. So I, like, anytime I have somebody, I'm like, hey, is this your first time? I have some really good lessons learned from our good friend Bruno. Let me send that over to you. And then they were like, oh yeah, we'll take that. We'll take it and we'll, use it. So it's been really awesome. And Bruno, I'm so glad he gets around. He's such a good guy.
Yeah, his last campaign was a lot of fun. And then I think on our
The Crimson Bay.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lot
I
of fun.
actually just got it not that long ago. It's in a box already. But yeah, Crimson Bay was really good.
Mhm. Yeah, no, he's great. And that's the thing too, right? Like there's so many people who are in the same space. You might be a few steps ahead or a few steps behind, and everyone's just willing to kind of push everyone along, because the goal is to have everyone's stuff out there, because the public needs great stories. And it's not just
and I hate seeing like people treat it like a competition. I don't like seeing it as a competition. I don't see it as a competition. The more people we can get out there and fund it in their stories with eyes on them and read and enjoyed, the better.
Mhm.
So those gatekeeping, cut the shit out.
You're 110% correct on that one. Like I just think that, even if it's something you may not read, the fact that another creator has put a book out there means that there's another type of reader who comes into the industry, right? And becomes aware of it. And sometimes, and this is, I thank my daughter for this one, you're not ready for everything all at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So, when I was watching anime with her, like I have my old school anime, and then, she would have liked other stuff, fairy tale and stuff like that. But then I got to appreciate the ones that she liked. And now that opens up another kind of avenue of stuff for me to either watch or read.
No, my daughter has been a big anime head, manga fan for years. And at first I didn't know what manga was. I knew what anime was, and I knew she watched it. And then when she was getting into manga, I'm like, I don't know what that is. What is that? And she's like, well, it's like a comic book, but from Japan. I was like, okay, where do we get it from? She's like, any bookstore. I'm like, okay, well, go get in the car and let's go. And I take her, and she picks out what she wants. And I'm like, the price isn't bad on them. Some of them's a little pricey depending on who it is and how rare they are. But some of hers I still have on auto just because like I set it up on Amazon. That way it just the new issue drops. Amazon gets it, Amazon sends it to my house.
Right.
I open it up, stick it on her shelf. And I had a friend of mine recently. He's like, "Hey, does your daughter read manga?" I was like, "Yeah, she does. She's very into it." And he's like, "Oh, well, my daughter was wanting to get into it." I'm like, "Okay, let her." He's like, "Well, I'm like, dude, your daughter's asking you to read.
Yeah.
Like, it's a comic book. Let her read. She wants to read."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Well, when you put it like that," I'm like, "Dude, she's asking you to read. Don't be mad because your kid is reading. I don't care what it is. They're reading." He's like, "You know what? That's a good point."
No, yeah, that's a great point. I remember, like, I'm a former teacher, and so I taught K-6 when I was working,
Ooh,
and
ooh.
they are an absolute joy. They'll make you laugh and cry at the same time. They're hilarious. But I remember when I was a kid, like I had tons of comic books, like tons of comic books. I would always kind of like, this is back in the days. Yes, I'm an old head, everyone. You can get them for 25 cents, and then you were outraged when they were 35 cents, right? But we would go down, ride our bikes to the variety store, pick up like 7 or 8 comics, and you can get, from DC and Marvel or Archie or whatever,
Mhm. Oh, Archie. I still love Archie to this
right?
day. I think they
Archie's
have some
great.
of the best horror out there. Anytime
Absolutely.
Halloween rolls around, I know there's going to be fresh Archie horror on the shelf. And
Hmm.
Dynamite just announced we're getting Archie Army of Darkness.
Oh, wow. That'll be good.
Yeah, that's going to be phenomenal. And I was just like, man, that's going to be amazing. But Archie always has great Halloween specials. And so I don't get it on a normal week in, week out basis. But Archie Halloween specials, guarantee. I just tell my comic shop that he knows by now. I've been seeing him for 5 years. And he's just like, "Hey, new Archie horror." I'm like, "Dude, don't even ask. Just put it in my box, dude. I got it."
Yeah, Archie does the best crossovers, and
They really do.
yeah, for sure. And getting back to the books, I remember as a kid, like the first time I ever heard the word nanosecond was in a Superman comic,
Mhm.
right? And reading certain Fantastic Four and Iron Man books because they're science based, you get
Yeah.
a vocab that you wouldn't normally get if you weren't reading those kind of things. And
Yep.
so, it's one of those things where, like, yes, obviously comics have a certain kind of a stigma or had a certain stigma, and yes, they're not novels, but the vocabulary in them, it can be quite technical. And
Yep.
as long as you're reading, and especially in today's environment where everything's very visual, being able to have that visual literacy as well as the words as well too, just goes a long way. So no matter
It
how
really
old,
does.
just keep reading.
It's like I say the same thing about music, and
Mhm.
people are like, "Well, my kid wants to do this in music." Okay, do it. Don't stop them. My daughter's
Yeah,
been playing piano since she was 3,
nice.
and she still plays. She learned how to play flute. She learned how to play oboe. Then she's like, "Dad, I want to learn how to play guitar." So I was like, "Okay, well, let's go find you a used guitar." And we got her a used guitar. Then we got her a used ukulele, and
Nice.
it's she has 2 rooms in my house, and it's all like one room is like music instruments and manga and books, and then she sleeps and does homework in the other one. So
Awesome.
she has her own little library in the house.
That's amazing.
Well, except for the closet, I took over the closet because I have like 30 short boxes in there.
Oh yeah, that's you know what? As much as I love digital, I still have to have like the real deal.
It is something about it. It's the smell, the feel of the page.
Hmm.
I mean, it's just so hard to, and I try to explain it to people. It's like going into that old bookstore and that
Yes.
old book smell, but there's something about a freshly printed single floppy issue of a comic book. It just feels so right in your hands.
Yes. Yeah, and I don't think it can be duplicated, really.
It can't. It
Yeah.
really can't. I love getting digital works. I love reading digital works. That's how I get most of my indie books when people come on the podcast. And I love reading those because I can make the screen bigger, and then I can start finding little Easter eggs hidden.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still, there's something about having that page right in front of you that is unbeatable.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also too, there's something, I'm not sure how to put it, but like when you're actually not looking at it on the screen, the art pops differently.
Yes. No, 100%. It's, I don't know how to put that, but you get so many more details on the page than you do with the computer screen.
Mm-hmm.
And you notice the little lines of stuff, the shading looks different. It's more defined on an actual printed page. It's yeah, it's that. It's that. Yeah. Yep, that's it. That feeling. It's that feeling right there. Let's talk about your team, Steve.
Sure.
So Peter Van Horn has a background in film. Well, you always have a background in film. Talk to us about him and kind of like what it was like working with him, being a friend and knowing him for as long as you have. How was that like with y'all both hitting this comic, dead on together?
Well, Peter and I have known each other for years, and I couldn't think of anyone else to bring on board for the project. And we've also, worked on films together. We've done, some work as assistant directors for a couple of films. Peter writes screenplays, and we've worked together in terms of like writing think tanks and stuff. We've got some other ideas that are cooking, and so working with him is a joy because it's kind of like not quite unimind, but we kind of think the same way. We kind of like the same shows. Grew up around the same time. So, whether it's cartoons of the 70s or police shows of the 70s and 80s, mentioned some of the films earlier. We kind of have that same sort of DNA, creative DNA. And so it's just great. So if we have an idea, if he has an idea and wants to take the script in one way, or I see it a different way, it's pretty easy to kind of find a spot that works, even if you don't necessarily always agree.
That's perfect though, is that you have somebody there. Yeah, you're friends. Yeah, you have very similar taste, but they're also not afraid to say no, or hey, maybe this instead. And that to me is like the perfect partnership to write.
Yeah, it's absolutely necessary.
Like I was talking to. Okay, I'll just put it out there. The chairman is working on something. I've already got my artist picked out with Francisco. Me and him are very similar tastes when it comes to horror comic books, and he was just going to be the perfect bet for me for this project. But we were shooting ideas back and forth, and he hit me with something I didn't even think about and a character I didn't even think about for it. And I was like, dude, no, that's perfect. He's like, we're missing a third, because there's stories within stories within stories. And I had the first two down. Like I knew what I was doing. And he hit me one day randomly for the third, the background story. And I was just like, dude, that's amazing. I'm like, he hadn't even crossed my mind yet, this character, but he fits perfect into what we're trying to do with this story. So I was just like, yep, save that email, move it over to this one where we're having our discussion, because we're just back and forth. It's how you do it, when you're brainstorming. He's my co-writer, he's my artist. And I'll probably reach out to some of the other people who's been on the podcast from an art perspective and like, hey, would you be willing to do me a cover for this book? And it's going to be a fun book. If you're big into Universal Monsters like we are, it's going to be something fun.
Nice. Looking forward to that.
But and then you have your artist, Lucas Falapi.
Yeah, you got it right.
And we touched about, were we live when we were talking about him, or are we still offline when we were talking about him?
I think we might have been live, but
okay. But still, yeah. Brazil, you're heading down there soon to do an in-store signing with him, which is, in a million years, would you have thought you'd be flying to Brazil to meet up with Lucas and sign Atrium live in the store?
No.
Sao Paulo of all places.
Yeah, no, I it's kind of like, it's wild. Like even thinking back that this was even a possibility when we started, or even going to the different cons across Canada and in the US, wouldn't have thought that this was a possibility. And actually finally being able to meet Lucas is great, because like, countless Zoom meetings, and
Oh
catching up,
yeah.
with each other. Not only like, what are you working on? How far? What issue you on? How's the translation going? That kind of stuff. But also like
Mhm.
talking about each other's families and how, just checking in to see how everyone, each other are doing. That's made this book even more special, because like it's a team. It's an
Built a
international
friendship
team.
with it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And just fortunate to be able to have found Lucas, and that working with him has been such a tight fit, but also he knocked it out of the park between
He
Lucas.
really did.
Oh yeah, and then the awesome colors by Nikos
And
Christos
Nikos and
and Mike
Mike
Torres.
Horse. Yep.
Like
That was next on the list.
absolutely, it's just absolutely, like when you like found gold kind of.
Oh yeah.
And Nikos and I have been friends for a long time. I've done some artwork and he's done some of the colors for it. And he was a no-brainer for us to do this book. And he helped us out a lot in terms of like,
Mhm.
he's worked on Savage Dragon with Eric Larson for years.
Severely underrated comic book, especially the earlier stuff from the 90s, because what I love about it is like the 90s had this weird boom where Image just printed, well, not just Image, but Marvel, DC, everybody was printing shit like it was going out of style.
Yeah.
Like Death of Superman isn't worth $5. You know what I'm saying? Because there was so many copies of that
Yeah.
printed. I'm so happy that when they did this 30th anniversary edition, they just did earlier this year, it didn't get a massive run.
Right.
So what we're having right now is the 30th anniversary of the death of Superman is worth more than the original Death of Superman because the run was so ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah.
Savage Dragon from the 90s didn't get just ridiculous runs like that. And neither did Spawn. I think Youngblood may have had a kind of a over, populated run, but that was a Rob Liefeld thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Savage Dragon's just always been, he's a fun character, he's like Lobo and Deadpool had an ugly baby.
Yeah, definitely. And working with Nikos, like we'd have conversations as well too. He's based out of Greece. He and Mike are out of Greece. And so
nice, beautiful area.
Oh, absolutely. And just with his talent and his eye, and just like both of them are just great guys. It also then helps when you're working professionally, and it's like, hey Steve, you might want to tweak this with his professional opinion on stuff. And one of the things that it's kind of like, I don't know how else to put this, but it's like, like when you have really talented people in positions, whether it's sports or whatever,
Oh yeah.
don't overmanage them. Don't
They know
butter
what
it
they're
up.
doing.
Just let them run, right? And the same
That's
thing
why you always surround yourself with people smarter than you.
absolutely.
All great leaders do it, and it applies across the board, whether you're writing a comic book or running a company. Surround yourself with people smarter than you are.
Oh, definitely. And we all kind of like, we're like, this is the way we're going to go, because we felt that we're going to get more out of everyone on the team if you kind of let them kind of like have loose shoulders, if you know what I mean on that.
Yep.
Right.
We're not going to leave out your letterer,
No.
Gregory Parkin, who's worked on some iconic brands.
Yes.
And
absolutely.
I always say, and I will say it to the day I die, lettering can make or break a comic book. It could be the most beautiful book out there. It could have beautiful characters, beautiful colors, beautiful line work, a beautiful story. But if those letterings are not where they should be, or they're covering up an important piece of a story, or just not where you want it to be, it makes or break a comic book. And also it could be over, convoluted with words on a page. You don't want it to look like somebody regurgitated the alphabet on a single page of a comic book. Unless the page is a splash page and it's like, like, hey, it's telling you kind of like like, hey, in this city it's 2078, and it's kind of giving you a little background information. That's the only time words should look like they've been regurgitated on a page.
Right. Yeah.
So
The crazy thing about lettering is it's akin to sound design in a film. Like, you don't really notice it until it's not great. You
yep,
know what I mean? But great sound design makes for a great film, and great lettering makes for a great comic book.
nailed
And
it.
it's like Voltron, right? All of the lions come together to form the mech. It's the same thing with a comic book. That entire team has to come together, whether it's your
Yep.
editor, whether it's the person who's doing the design, your writers, your artists. Like, don't get me wrong, the artist is kind of like the lead singer
Mhm.
in a comic book, and then maybe the writer's the lead guitarist. The colorist
Maybe.
might be the drummer, letterer might do bass, but for the most part, everyone has to be on point for the final product to slap. And
Oh yeah.
we were really lucky. And I don't want to like go too above and beyond saying that we hit all of our marks, but the reaction that we're getting from people who have read the book and have reviewed it, or have come back to us at cons, we did all right. Looks like
You
people
hit your
really
mark.
enjoyed it.
You hit your mark. I'll go ahead and say it. You hit your
Thank you.
mark.
Thank you.
If you were a quartet, you sound beautiful.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. No, and like, here's the thing, right? There's a lot of stuff out there in the marketplace. So whether it's manga, whether it's comic books, whether it's indie, there's way more stuff out there than ever before. Like you were mentioning,
yeah.
Italian artists, there's French artists,
Mhm. South America is
South
booming.
America is booming, right? The Philippines, like, so you have art everywhere.
Yeah, Philippines is a sleeper, man.
Absolute sleeper.
Singapore as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think
Totally.
that's where Artgerm is from. He's Singapore,
Yes,
right?
I think so. Right.
So yeah.
And so when you think about like how much work's out there, like when we were kids, I'm a little bit older than you, but like when we were kids, you were lucky to get stuff out of Japan,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And like you may
I think
have like
Akira was really the first thing I can remember from Japan.
for me it would have been Gatchaman or Battle of the Planets as it was called back then.
Okay.
And then we had Robotech. So those are kind of
Okay. Oh
the
yeah,
major
that's
ones,
yeah.
right? And so like you think back then, you didn't have like, and to get proper anime, you had to go to like some like out of the way video store that had bootlegs.
Yep.
You couldn't just stumble across this stuff. So if it wasn't for something like heavy metal, where you would get some European art, right?
Oh yeah.
It was basically just one type of, if it was a mainstream comic books, it was it. Unless you like something like Tintin or something like that, right?
So I will say I will forever be grateful to heavy metal because it introduced me to Frank Frazetta,
Oh yeah,
and I've loved his work ever since the first time I saw it.
definitely.
And even today, I'm so happy that his kids are running the Frank Frazetta Museum. So
Yeah.
his art is still out there. It's still being, reproduced. And like you always know a Frank Frazetta work, like the style, the tones, just everything. You see it, you immediately know. And that's what draws me still to comics today.
Yeah.
I will see something and it will look, trying to think. Ani Press is doing that sci-fi book they're doing, but it's very reminiscent of Frank Frazetta art in certain aspects. So
Right.
I'm just like, and I love a good anthology comic to begin with, but anything that resembles Frank Frazetta's artwork, or you could tell when the artist has been heavily influenced by him, I'm like, the story doesn't really matter. I just want to look at the art. If I get a good story, cool. But if the art is reminiscent of Frank Frazetta, I'm on it. Like, I'll take that.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that for sure. And like I remember as a kid, I think it was the artist who did Druna. I loved.
Okay.
I can't remember the name at this moment, but like it was almost like a pencil crayon kind of rendering with lots of
Yeah.
hatching, just great stuff. And then John Buscema, who's doing like the Conan books, like the sort
Oh
of
yeah.
Conan with Ernie
Yeah.
Chang doing the inks. Like it's stuff like that. And then getting back to the original point, with all the stuff out there, when someone can still look at your work or a book that you're a part of and go, hey, we like that, that says something. It's a good feeling. It just means like, okay, we're in the right direction. And, you know, in this little tiny corner of readerdom, some people actually like what we're doing. So that's rewarding.
It's always really cool. And I always I know your Kickstarter has already closed, but I always enjoy like watching the Kickstarters, you know, of people who have been on the podcast and just watching it climb and climb. And then when it finally hits its goal, I'm like,
yeah,
people love the project. So people are going to back it. You put yourself out there, and it's, you know, you're literally just putting a piece of your soul out there for somebody to look at and to critique and to say, hey, is this good or not? And it takes a lot of gumption to do that.
Yeah, it does. But I think that no matter how, like where you are on the journey, you just put it out there because it might be your first one. Like if you look at James Cameron, everyone might think T2, Avatar,
Yeah,
but they don't necessarily remember Piranha, right?
I do, because I love that movie.
Right? Great
I
flick.
love B-horror. I love that kind of stuff.
It's great stuff, right? But you got to start somewhere, basically. And don't let kind of like the end product of someone who's at like their 20th year of their journey hold you back. Put it out there and then keep going. You think of Eastman and Laird and their first TMNT books, right?
Oh, yeah.
The art is not as polished as it would have been later on because like they're figuring stuff out.
From literally the living room of their apartment in New York City.
Absolutely. Right.
So, I mean, and it doesn't like young, old, put it out there.
And with web comics and different ways of getting it out there, you don't have to necessarily be like, you know, have the stumbling
Shout out
block.
to like Gumroad and Kofi doing great things for artists like that.
And it's crazy because now Marvel and DC are doing the webcomic thing. Like they realize these are spaces that you can't ignore anymore or think that it's outside of their purview. You got to get in there.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about the heart of the story a little bit. Atrium is a thriller, but it's very deeply, I want to say it's human, even though there's vampires involved. But the theme of it is very much rooted in human emotion, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Kind of like, what do you want the people who are reading this comic to take away from it? Because it very much, the story, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm brain farting so bad right now. It's embarrassing. But like literally life and death and the way humans and vampires live together are at a standstill basically for this one heart that could either unite us or, you know, completely divide us away from each other.
Yeah, I think what we were kind of going for is that we wanted to tell a story that had some stakes that mattered, right? It sounds corny saying it, but it has to have heart. I remember working with a director once who said, as long as your story has heart, this one literally has one in a box. But it's one of those things where like, you know, like how the villain is the hero of his own story, their own story, and the hero has their journey. We want to tell a story where like we all have our paths and we all have choices. But the main thing that we all want to do is just kind of want to live and survive and to thrive. And where things get lost is like maybe someone's a little bit more greedy. Maybe someone's a little bit more fearful. Someone is a little bit more passive. And so then you get these kind of ebbs and flows with things.
Yeah.
And so
we did see some prejudice in this story.
Oh, absolutely. And so, and you know, the old classic thing of what you don't understand, you tend to hate. And you know, getting back to like kind of like the artists and musicians and stuff, sometimes the artist wants to be a musician, and sometimes the musician doesn't want to play in a band. They would much rather be an artist or a writer or play sports or something. So does your destiny or does your path in life tell you exactly what you are? Does that make you what you are? Or is it how you go about life, how you do things? And so whether, there's some vampires in the story, just because you're a vampire doesn't necessarily mean that you act and behave or think in a certain way.
Yeah, no, the vampires in the story were very human. And that's what I think I was trying to say earlier, is they are very much human with human emotions and the care for society that you feel like you don't really know from the way they act that they're any different from a human, but they are vampire.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the things that Peter and I, when we had our discussions early on, it was like, as well as Vaughn when we were, who's our editor, we were trying to figure out, like, how do we make it so that it's not every other vampire story you've ever heard or watched or seen, but also how does it then connect to someone that might be reading it for the first time or isn't a fan of vampires, but yet can get kind of hooked in. And basically, it was one of those things where it's kind of like, there's an old Dr. Seuss book that I remember reading with my kids in class one day. And it was where, like, they had a piece of bread and one person liked it buttered one way. And then the other says, not as ridiculous. You got to butter it on the bottom. Right. And they went to war, kind of like the Hatfields and the McCoys. And so you've got vampires and humans in this struggle basically for survival and existence.
And the humans don't really realize that struggle is happening. I think that was also one of the things I was trying to allude to earlier. Is some humans know, or the humans know vampires exist in the story to some degree. I think
there are some humans that know, the general population does not.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where it's like, how do you coexist without causing mass hysteria?
Yes.
When your food source basically would be threatened by knowing that you exist. And so there's two factions of vampires, one that wants to live in harmony, and then one that are like, you know what, why are we doing this? And like one of the characters, one of the brothers in the story, not giving anything away, his family's ravaged by cancer. He's a former vet.
Yeah.
Right. He's former military. And he's seen cancer ravage his family. And he's like, if I have the ability to not see someone go through that pain, and I think he was either he's terminal or he has
his brother.
Right. So his brother turned that so he wouldn't die of cancer. And he decided to do it as well, too. And that motivates them, where it's like, we have the answer to all of your ills. But then that goes counter to what is life, where like, I know that one of the characters is like, why would you want to live forever? Like, that's a great question. Like, what would you do? You outlive all of your loved ones, right?
So before we went live, I had mentioned Mark Miller's Vatican City. In Vatican City, the last remnants of the human race are trapped inside the Vatican.
Nice.
And the one thing the vampires need to become the ultimate, species of Earth is trapped within the walls of the Vatican. And they're basically trying to sales pitch to humans. Bring this to us. We'll make you one of us, but we need this.
Right.
So quite the opposite of what the story you're telling, but also within the same review of the same thing, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, totally. It's in a weird way, it's an environmental story, right? It's like conservation versus, not like, do we use all the resources that the earth has? Or do we find a way to kind of balance our need for it versus sustainability? And one of the things is like, what's the sustainability going to be if vampires overrun humans, right?
Blade 3, they have human farms, remember?
Yep. But then when you have something like that, what then do you do about free will and all that? So those
Yep.
are all those kind of dynamics that are at play.
It's a lot of elements in a story. And going into it, like I had mentioned earlier, I had no idea that it was a vampire story until I hit that one part where the guy first, transforms. So the moment I realized it was a vampire story, I was like, I reread it before we went live, to be fair. I mean, I read it when you sent it to me, and I read it again before we went live, so it's fresh in my head. And I love a good vampire story. Vampire stories to me they stick with you for so long for so many different reasons, because you can play both sides of this coin however you want to. But it's just something about a really good vampire story that it sticks with you. And this is one of those where I know you pitched this for a TV series or a movie, and it's like, now that I've read it, I was like, this would be an awesome TV series.
Well, thank you.
That's me.
Thank you. Anyone out there who's listening and wants to make it, the chairman is, he's spitting facts. No, and I really appreciate the kind words. And we actually kind of wrote it that way, Peter and I, where there's a lot of panels and pages where there's not a lot of dialogue. And so it
feels very episodic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're going for that cinematic feel. And Lucas was able to capture that. Like one of the shows that Peter and I grew up watching when we were kids was Miami Vice. And look,
I love Miami Vice.
Miami Vice is peak
so
TV.
Good.
Peak TV before peak TV. And those rides in the car, especially when they're in the Daytona in the first two seasons, where crocodiles just kind of look at each other. Or
the pet alligator, dude.
Absolutely. Right. And it's just like a lot of silence, but either the song that was playing in the background or the moment in the narrative that spoke volumes. Right.
It's amazing how the music, the mood, the surrounded area can tell a story without words needing to be spoken.
Absolutely. Right. And so we tried to like convey a little bit of that, where speak when necessary, but then let the action take over at sometimes, but also not to clutter it too much.
Yeah. Again, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with lettering being so important in a book.
No, definitely.
So, no, y'all definitely knocked this out of the park. So what can fans expect coming up from Atrium?
Well, we've got a whole world built up, and we're currently throwing around ideas of where to take it next, because without giving away too much, don't fall in love with any characters in this book.
Oh yeah. Right? I got that vibe from it.
Like Naomi and Darnell are kind of cool, and there's some other characters in there that we had fun creating. And I know Lucas was upset when one of the characters didn't make it, because I think he enjoyed drawing them. Mm-hmm. But there's a bigger world to tell, right? And we want to tell it,
especially now that the heart has been delivered.
Yes.
So now I feel like this is where the story really picks up, where it should really pick up with how the next chapters go. I got a feeling deep down inside of me that the story is really going to pick up right here.
Yeah, the stakes obviously, because of how things end up, are kind of shifted a little bit and raised. And also there's a lot more world building that we have. Mm-hmm. We've got some great ideas and little kind of like neat twists on things that are not necessarily part of vampire lore, because we're going to bend those a little bit.
Oh yeah, you have to right? you have to set it apart from the standard vampire.
Yeah, so we've got some ideas, and just how we would then have them come out is part of like the beauty of what's going to come next. But there will be a second set of Atrium books. It might be a little bit because we're currently working on some other things, and I'm working on another project, which will be a 5-issue miniseries as well too. Which I'll be.
That's awesome, because that was literally the next question: is has Atrium opened that door for more creator-owned titles from Comix Asylum? Well, from you and your team there.
Yeah, we have about 4 that we have in various stages of development, but the next one coming up is called Chronocari Alpha, and it's about 2 kids that are born at exactly the same time, but when they collide in gym class, they unlock their ability to control time. And so Thank you. Yeah, they did that. I did this as a novella about 10 years
Okay.
ago. And so I've actually drawn probably about 90% of it. I got about 15 more pages to draw.
Are you doing the art on this one?
I'm doing the art on this one, and then I'll be inking it and sending it off for colors and letters.
Was it a TV show or a movie that had something similar to that, where they could control time?
I know there was a British show called, I can't remember the name of it, but there was a dude who could reel back time. And then I know Heroes had a guy who can control the flow of time.
Yeah. It might be Heroes I'm thinking about. And the British one, was it the Rejects or something like that?
I'm not sure.
I know it's the show they based Heroes off of.
It's possible. It might be the Rejects. I'm going to check it up right now.
Yeah. Because that show was so good. Like, the UK will surprise you with some shows, and then there's some shows where you're like, people are raving about it, and you're like, yeah, no, I didn't feel that. No.
Oh, yeah. The Misfits.
The Misfits. That's it.
Yeah.
That one is, for anybody out there, if you've never watched The Misfits, it is it's basically UK's version of Heroes. Only it never derailed with a writer strike. It's perfect start to finish.
So true.
Perfect start to finish. And it's so fun. And it's just an amazing, amazing watch. So give that a watch if y'all haven't before, because it is really good. And watch Heroes up till, I think, season 3?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Heroes
after
was
3 when it had so much potential. And the graphic novel, thankfully, is done the correct way. However, the show went off the rails when the directors and everybody was like, we can just write it ourselves. Screw them writers. No, never, ever do that again for anything. Writer strikes, let them strike, play some reruns until it's over.
It's true. You notice that anytime there's a writer strike, whatever's being made during that time just doesn't like come off as well as it could.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Thankfully, they're making shows like a lot. Some shows go like season 1's done, they'll roll straight into season 2, but they're separating them out by a year. That way there's that. And I'm okay with that. What I'm not been okay with here lately is the way Netflix has been doing. But we're going to give you 5 episodes. We're going to make you wait 6 more months. We're going to give you the second 5 episodes or however long it is in between. That shit kills me.
Yeah.
Like, the show's done. And Cobra Kai was the first one I can remember they did that with. And I think it was like 2 weeks in between or something like that, the seasons. I'm like, it's done. It's finished. Just give it to us.
That's when the business kicks in, right? That's when,
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's maximizing the money they get off ads and all that other stuff. So, I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, you're making the same amount of money, whether I get it all right now or if I got to wait 2 weeks.
Right. Exactly. Like in a way, it's almost like depending on how fully formed the show is, or it comes to series or whatever. Because like sometimes the first season, they're just trying to figure stuff out. And then it gets rolling by 2 and 3, then more money or whatever. And then there's some shows where like it's been percolating for like 5, 6, 7 years.
Are we talking about season 5 of Stranger Things? Because that's how long it feels like we've been waiting for that.
Yeah, kind of like that, right? And
those
like,
kids are grown up, married, out of college, and everything else now.
They're like 35 years old, all of them, right? And but then you feel like after that banger first season, and then they get a second one ordered, you don't have the amount of time to actually cultivate a proper second season, and then the show dips after the first, right? So it's 6 to 1, half dozen other, depending on.
It's one of those. I'm okay waiting a year in between seasons, but it's when you get into that 18 month mark, that 2-year mark, and they're like, "Oh, we're working on the new season." I'm like, I don't even care no more. It's been 2 years. Like, I've lost all interest in this.
The only time that worked for me was Sopranos, where I was like, you know what?
Okay, yeah.
No. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait.
Yeah.
I can.
No, you're right about that one.
But that's
that final season. Yeah.
Because it was a peak show, right? But if you're not, if you don't have the David
good.
Chase type style of storytelling and whatnot, then
As long as they don't try to like bring it something back like they did 24. Remember when 24 came back and it was just horrid? Like, why did y'all do this? You ended it perfectly, and then you do this? Like, no, come on.
Yeah, no, totally. And because I'm a big fan of Stranger Things, it's gonna.
I am too. Yeah.
Really interesting to see how they end it, because it didn't click to me how young they were until I saw them a couple of days ago, like some clip. And then I think of like, how old they are in like the Ghostbuster movies, or even Millie Bobby Brown in the Godzilla flicks. And
She's literally married, and they just adopted a child.
Yeah, which is like, I'm like, wow. Seven has a kid now.
Yeah, she's 21 or 22 or something like that. And I'm like, she got married last year or the year prior?
So. Yeah, something like that.
I forgot who she's married to.
John Bon Jovi's kid.
Yeah, John Bon Jovi's kid. And they're like, hey, we're just gonna go adopt a kid. I'm like, okay, I guess that's cool. Yeah, no, cool. Yeah. Go for it. You have the means to do it, then more power to you.
Yeah. That just shows you how time flies. Because I can still remember watching season 1 like it was yesterday.
Right? Me and my daughter sitting on the couch watching season 1 together, and I feel like my daughter was like the same age as them. And I'm like, well, technically she kind of is, because she's 19. So she is kind of around that same time frame as them, same age.
Yeah.
But it's definitely one of those where time flew, and all of a sudden we have adults now trying to play teenage selves, which they're all really young, and they still look really young. So props to them.
Yeah. It's just, they're mad tall. Some of them are mad tall now.
Oh yeah. Like, we're gonna have to shoot this camera angle like this to make him look shorter.
Yeah.
I think it's Finn. That dude's like 7 feet tall or something. Like, he's a tall dude.
Yeah.
Like, he hit that growth spurt at the wrong time for him.
Yeah, but I'm sure they'll find a way. Who are the brothers again who are doing it? Their names.
The Duffys.
The Duffys. I'm sure they'll figure out a way to make it work.
They're brilliant. I think from the sibling perspective of directors and writers, I think they're some of since the Wachowskis, came and left.
Right.
I think they're probably some of the better sibling pairs of directors and writers that are just really, really good.
No, agreed. Yeah, it's kind of funny because we had this conversation on our podcast not too long ago about like what's wrong with comics, right? But there's a lot of great stuff being made. There really is. It may not be like the mainstream titles. Like, you may not be totally happy with, Green Lantern as an example, but for every comic that you're not happy with, there's something coming out of.
There's 10 more just that are perfect.
Or Void Rivals, right? Or something like that, right? Like, just absolute bangers. And so it's a matter of.
I was telling you earlier, Aubrey Sitterson's Free Planet has, like, I live week to week to when the next issue of that book will come out. And he's so good with interacting with his fans about the book on his Instagram and stuff like that.
Nice.
And you cheer for him because he's literally like, hey, this next issue, I'm throwing you something that you're not expecting. And like, he's really good. And I wish more comic book writers and artists were like that. I know a lot of them are really good about selling themselves, and like putting themselves out there on social media to really build the hype for themselves and their product. And I wish more did that.
It's funny you mentioned that, because it was one of the things that we kind of learned with Atrium. And I would pass along this advice to anyone that's thinking of getting into it. Because you're not creating Spider-Man, whatever you're creating may become the next Spider-Man or the next Wonder Woman or the next Miss Marvel. When someone is going to, part with their hard-earned money for your creation, they're buying you, right? So making yourself accessible, not taking your audience for granted, and appreciating the fact that they're taking the time to either stop at your table and say hi, even if they don't buy anything, that goes a long way in, kind of endearing yourself to your audience. Because if they don't like you, they're not buying your stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm not saying don't be genuine. I'm just saying don't be a dick.
Yeah, no, and there in what I've discovered is it's been both ways, right? Like, take for instance my last comic, not Cape Con, but the last actual Comic Con I went to. Like, they never advertised Tinny Howard,
Oh wow.
and she was there, so I had to get some Rick and Morty signed by her.
Oh.
And she's working on Marian Heretic right now, which is probably one of the more popular books that's been out in a while,
Mhm.
from a female writer, and also just Boom Studios consistent, just puts out bangers.
Yeah.
But it's a phenomenal book if you're into witchcraft and nuns that hunt witches.
Mhm.
By all means, you need to check that out. Luana Vecchio was there with Lovesick,
Wow.
which
Okay.
she's French, I think, and just another amazing story, amazing artist. Who else was there? Tula Latoy.
Okay. Cool. That's a pretty good lineup.
Phenomenal lineup. And like I said, they don't really do a good job of advertising these people are going to be there. And I pay attention to their website. So whenever, like, hey, this is who's going to be an artist alley, I immediately go to my boxes and I start like, I got to get that signed. I got to get that signed, you know? But it really is. I wish more people who are in comic books would put themselves out more. I know Tiny Onion and Tinian, they're really good about hosting fan events and that kind of stuff with comic shops. They're doing a world tour right now. Well,
Nice.
I'm using that term loosely. They're doing a tour right now for Exquisite Corpses.
Nice.
And they're doing sign-ins all around the United States. And I think they've been into Canada a few times. And it's really cool to see how that book has, because they're literally playing a card game to determine the next character that dies in it, like a
Awesome.
tabletop game,
Awesome.
which is so unique and so cool. So they sit around with Michael Walsh, who is the artist on it, and also the co-writer with Tinian. They developed a card game to determine who dies next of the main characters. And it's a phenomenal, cool thing to do. And I think there's like, it's going to be 13 issues. And I'm like, y'all got to run that back, I think, because this is such a cool concept. I've not seen it done that way.
It's a brilliant concept.
So, and I've been getting like the, my favorite is the Michael Walsh polybag, because it comes with the card.
Got it.
So you're collecting the cards, and they've released, I think, can't remember if they released it yet or not, but they're getting ready to release the board game version of it. That way you can play the game when you have all your cards.
Sweet. That's brilliant. That's
Dude, marketing 101. Like, that is genius level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's, you know what?
Right? And I say all that to say, market yourselves, put yourselves out there on your social media.
Yeah.
Whether you have to make a whole bunch of social media at once and then schedule it a little at a time that way because you're busy. But put yourself out there. Do those little Instagram lives. Artists, writers, it's all there for you. You just have to make some time to do it.
Yeah, and it's, scheduling it. You're totally correct, but you can't not do it.
It's the biggest thing right there.
Yeah, it's a necessary part of it, and everyone likes to get a little bit of a peek behind the scenes of what's happening. And it's sometimes a little bit easier if you're an artist, because it's like right in your face, whatever you're doing to process stuff. Writers, it's a little bit more ethereal, smoke and mirrors type stuff, and it can be a little bit kind of, not as entertaining. But if you, with all the stuff that's out there, you can definitely make it entertaining.
No, 100%, 100%. But before we get out of here, Steve, what's coming up next for Comix Asylum? Not a comic book standpoint, but what's just coming up next for Comix Asylum?
We've got some videos that we still have to process from the Montreal Comic Con. I think we have Joe Rubenstein interview. And then,
nice.
Yeah. We just finished. I just put one up a couple weeks ago with Jim Starlin of Thanos fame. And then I just had the writer and editor from Pug W. They're doing a behind the scenes, kind of like an art book. It's called Marvel Panels Behind the Scenes for Secret Wars. So they take Jonathan Hickman's and Esad Ribic's 2015 version of the Secret Wars, and they go behind the scenes. They interview all the creators, all the stories, and they have a Kickstarter for it. So I've
seen that recently on Kickstarter. I was wondering if that was the one you were talking about.
Yeah, so we had a
Tyler
chance.
Kirkham just released something like that too.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Is this for Walking Dead or is it?
I don't remember which one it's for. I think it's for a couple of them. Like just some of the, like it might be like a tabletop book, like a coffee table book.
Absolutely.
But I know he had something like that.
Yeah, it's like this one's the artist edition size, and so I had a chance to talk with
so it's like
Kyle.
This thick, some monster of a book,
and Mason Rabinowitz, and so they went through all of the backstory on some of the stuff that's available, not only with the Kickstarter but also some of the behind the scenes stuff. So we got that.
That's really cool.
And then, as I mentioned, heading down to Brazil for the in-store signing for
That's
Atrium.
going to be amazing.
And we're currently getting the book. It's already translated into Portuguese, and we have that edition ready. And then we're going to have a French version as well too. So we're in the process of getting that one done.
How's that process been? Like, I know, is it because it's Lucas doing the translation for y'all, right?
Yes.
For the French and the Portuguese? He's
doing the Portuguese, and then we have Mark Waugh, who's up here in Quebec. He's doing the French
Canadian. Yeah. That makes sense. Just right down the road.
Absolutely. And he's a comic creator as well too. So he translated it, and then we're going to have Jerome Gagnon, who does a lot of work for Orange Cone Comics out of the States. He's going to be lettering the French graphic novel.
That's so cool to see that you're marketing it to the right people and getting it translated into multiple different languages to fit your creators. Because I mean, I don't want people to forget that there is a French speaking portion of Canada, and that's all they speak up there is French. I mean, their English is good, but it's mainly French up there. And it's really cool. And the only reason I know that is because I watch Letterkenny.
Awesome. Letterkenny rocks, man.
I'm a huge fan. Ever since I discovered it, I was just like, and then the spinoff with Shorzy has been phenomenal. So I'm glad you can relate to that because that's such a fun show.
Yeah, it's a fun show. And then I like hockey as well too. So I've
never been a big hockey guy, but watching Shorzy makes me love hockey even more because it's AAA beer league and it's fighting in beer. How awesome is that?
Can't go wrong.
With a little hockey thrown in.
A tiny bit.
But Steve, let everybody know where they can find yourself and Comix Asylum. We'll wrap it up.
No worries. So you can find us on YouTube. We're Comix Asylum. And then we're also on Instagram at Comix Asylum as well too. And www.comixasylum.com, which is our regular site, which we post all the news and stuff from the industry. And then if you want to pick up copies of Atrium, you can find us at comixasylum.pub.
Awesome. I like it. So, council members, that brings us to the end of another deep dive into the stories shaping our corner of the universe. A huge thank you to Steve and Comix Asylum for stopping by tonight to share Atrium with us. And whether you joined us live or you're going to catch this later on a replay, make sure you support the creators, check out the book, continue fueling the community that makes indie comics thrive. And remember, this is the USDN podcast where indie comics come to life. Steve, Atrium, Comix Asylum, y'all are all hereby USDN approved.
It was a pleasure being here.
And with that, this is the chairman, and the council is adjourned.
trap!